the mountains force the rain clouds to rise. And in doing so, you get precipitation. The rain comes down and flows down the mountains, rivers, to the topsoil on the plains, onto the ground for the food to grow, for man to survive. And this little seed is part of this incredible, perfect world. Now let's move to the seed of a human being. The seed of a human being begins as a tipa serucha, a drop, literally, which is microscopic. And the very miracle of conception, you ask a gynecologist, they'll tell you it's the chances of this seed being fertilized is 1 in many millions. So here you have a seed which is literally microscopic. All it starts off as is a brain and a heart. And over the next 40 days, this brain and heart in the womb of its mother actually creates its own skeletal system, its own muscular system, nervous system, respiratory system. Every single system within the body is literally created by this seed. And the question begs, how does it do it? And the answer is it's not doing it on its own. It has divine intelligence in it. Now, here's the question. If, God forbid, a child or an adult has a cut on their finger, if you didn't have a Band-Aid and you have no ointment, will the finger not know what to do? Or your body knows exactly what to do, knows exactly how to compensate? The body on its own will send blood cells to the surface of your skin where it's been torn, and it will congeal. It will close up that gap and create a crust. And beneath the crust, if I don't peel the crust off beforehand, the crust will actually protect a new layer of skin that will create itself. I am very, very sorry. Could I trouble you, everyone, to mute yourselves?
I'm muting people, and people are unmuting. Please stay muted. I keep muting you, and people are unmuting. Could everybody please mute themselves now and stay muted till the end, and we'll have time for questions at the end. Thank you.
I'll try to keep it very short. So
it's fine. Go ahead.
So, does it make sense that God, who created the universe, did he create the universe for the seed in the ground, for the tree, for the wind, for the rainfall? Did God create the world for the sun? Of course not. Did he create it for the mountains and gravity and the oceans? No, of course not. Did he create it for that seed that is planted in the womb of its mother? Well, was the purpose of that seed so that there will just be a physical human body?
She's recording it.
Oh, so you'll be able to watch it whenever you want.
I just wanted to see who he was, this Rob Rietti.
The rabbi is muted. We can't hear him.
Okay. Rabbi Rietti, can you unmute yourself, please?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Everybody, you got muted. I'm sorry. Everybody, I mute you, but you're unmuting. Please stay muted.
Does this happen every time you do this?
No, sorry.
I've never had this before, and I do Zoom every day.
No, this doesn't happen every time. I'm really sorry.
Okay. That's all right.
There is a way they cannot unmute themselves.
No, Rabbi Rietti, you're muted. Oh, God, I did. Rabbi Rietti.
Yeah, I don't know how that's happening. It's not me.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm really sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. Okay. I'm not sure where you lost me, but
let's just back a little bit.
I'm sorry?
Let's
okay.
Back a little bit.
Okay. So does it make sense to claim that God created the universe for the mountains? Of course not. How about creating the universe for the sun, for the gravity and the wind and the rain and sunshine and clouds, for the fruit, for the tree, for that seed in the ground? No, of course not. God created the entire universe for man. But which part of man did God create him for? He created him for his body or for his soul, which really is his mind. So everyone knows the answer. You and I are not bodies, we are minds. Our mind is our soul. If you need a makar, a source for that, you can look it up in Sefer Chinuch. I think it's in mitzvah number 39. He talks there about the seichel. The mind that you and I have is the neshama. You'll also find it in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 and 27 in the Sephorno, that he makes the claim that the seichel, your mind, is initzchias, it's eternal. It is your soul. Once we know this, here comes the most obvious question. If every element in creation knows how to heal itself, and so does your body, does it make sense that God, who created man for his mind, the mind has not got the ability to heal itself? Does that make sense? And the answer is, of course not. Okay, so how do we heal ourselves? And the answer, because it's deceptively simple, many times will just go right over my head. So I'm going to make it super simple, even though it really is just so obvious. It's so obvious that I will probably forget it. And here's why. You ask a fish in the water, hey fish, how's the water? And the fish will look at you and say, water, what water? You see, the fish is surrounded by water everywhere, so he doesn't have to pay attention to it. Something you and I don't need to pay attention to, we don't pay that much attention to. I'm talking about something that's much closer to us than water for a fish. If any of you have any of you met someone who wakes up in the morning and gets anxious about oxygen? How do I know there's going to be enough oxygen for everyone? I just read there's nearly 7 billion people on this planet. How do I know there's going to be enough air for me today? I better begin investing now. Now, nobody you know wakes up in the morning worrying, will there be enough air for all of us to breathe? Why not? Because it's there all the time. Something that's there all the time, I pay less attention to. I'm not talking about water for a fish, and I'm not talking about air for a human being. I'm talking about something that's way closer than both. We're talking about thought. You cannot experience anything in life without thinking it. We cannot even experience an emotion unless we think it. Now, I'm not going to go into the origin of how Christianity corrupted our texts. It's really not the place. But there are a number of words in our Torah which have been innocently mistranslated by our translators because it's popular, without looking at what the word means in Tanakh throughout our Rishonim. So, for example, the one I'm referring to is the word leiv. The word leiv is usually, I shouldn't say usually, it's only always translated as heart. There are 3 types of hearts. There's a metaphor of a heart. So, for example, leiv hayam, we say every day in repeating the crossing of the Yam Suf in chapter 14 of the book of Exodus, kafu tahaimois beleiv yam. The ground congealed, became dry, beleiv yam, in the heart of the sea. There's no heart in the sea. It's a metaphor for the middle of the sea, the midst of the sea. Leiv hashamayim, chapter 4 in the book of Deuteronomy, Moshe Rabbeinu reminds us that at Har Sinai, the flames of the mountain were boyer, were flaming ad leiv hashamayim, till the heart in heaven. There's no heart in heaven. It's a metaphor. It's not real. Sometimes, very rarely, the word leiv can mean your physical heart. So, for example, chapter 28, Parshat Tetzaveh in Exodus, Aaron HaKohen wears the choshen, the breastplate, al liboy, against his heart. That's his physical heart. But way more than those 2 examples, more than 9 times out of 10, it's more like 96, 97 out of 100, the word leiv means mind. Ramban, on the pasuk, you and I say the pasuk every day, ve'ahavta, and you shall love et Hashem Elokecha, your God, b'chol levavecha, with all your thoughts. Lev means mind or thought. When it's doubled over, it means thoughts. The Christian translation, which we're stuck with, has created a decoy. And so what we've got now in the world that's a false world, a world of sheker, we think that my mind and my emotions are two separate entities. And yet there's no word anywhere in the entire Tanakh for emotion. Why? Even the word regesh, by the way, in Tanakh, rikshu is a kibbutz gadol b'yachad, a large number of people coming together. Look it up in the second chapter of Tehillim. Wherever you see the word regesh, it does not mean emotion. In modern Hebrew, it does mean that. But what I'm saying is that if there's no word in Lashon HaKodesh for emotion, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It means there's a different word that we're not paying attention to. And that's the word lev. Rabbis machashavos belevis. You say every morning in davening, there are many thoughts in the mind of a person. That's a pasuk from Shlomo Melech. I'm just going to carry on talking and ignore the background noise. This doesn't make sense for me to discipline. So comes along Shlomo Melech in chapter 19, verse 21 of Mishlei, the book of Proverbs, and he says, Rabbis machashavos, there are many thoughts belevish in the mind of a person. The first time the word lev appears in the Torah is in the context of thought. In chapter 6, verse 5 of Bereshis, it says, Vayar Hashem, and Hashem saw ki rabba rasa Adam, the negativity of mankind was abundant, the kol yetzer, and all the design, machshavot libo, of the thoughts of his mind, rak kol hayom, was only negative all day long. So you see the word lev is referring to what you're thinking. And once you translate it this way, the whole world turns around. Our Judaism becomes retranslated correctly. Lotisna et achicha bilvavecha does not translate correctly as don't hate your brother in your heart. Even that would be the wrong translation, even though that's what they write, because the word levavecha is doubled over, so it should be plural, so it should be in your hearts. But everyone knows you've only got one heart. So it doesn't mean either. It doesn't mean heart or hearts. It means in your thoughts. That's what Sefer Charedim tells us. These are Rishonim, by the way. I'm not even telling you Achronim yet. The word lev has always been known to mean da'at, is referring to your mind. Once you know that, it's going to change how we experience life. Because the reason why there's no word for emotion in Lashon HaKodesh is so ridiculously simple. It's because 100% of everything we feel is what we're thinking. You couldn't have a separate word for thought and emotion in the language which created reality. If there were two separate words, they would be two separate entities. But because the word lev refers to both, what you're thinking and therefore immediately what you're feeling in your heart, which is an icon of emotion, that is extremely revealing. Because now I know that the true source of my anger is not the person who I think is provoking me or upsetting me. The true source of my anger is what I'm thinking about that person. The true source of my anger, frustration, is not this kid who's driving me crazy. What's driving me crazy is not the kid. He can't get inside my head and press my frustration button or anger or resentment button. It's impossible. So then how come I'm so bent out of shape over this child? And the answer is, my thoughts are what are driving me crazy. It's not the kid. He's not inside my brain. Never will be. It's not my neighbor, and it's not my sister-in-law, and it's not my brother-in-law. It's never my mother-in-law. Sorry, just swallowing. That is getting to me. It's my thinking about my mother-in-law that's getting to me. I'm going to give you a few examples of how this is so ridiculously true that when we look at life, it suddenly becomes glaringly obvious. See, here I am. I'm really, let's say, absorbed in giving this class, and all of a sudden, oh, excuse me, Michael. Oh, how are you? Yeah, really? Oh, in 5 minutes? Yeah, I'll be there. Thanks. Oh, great. Awesome. Okay, bye. So that was Michael. He's a client I've been chasing for months now. And he hasn't called me once. This is the first time he's calling me. And I don't think you appreciate it. If I get this deal and he's offering, saying, can I meet him in 5 minutes around the corner? Oh my gosh, I've been running after this guy to make this deal. If I get this deal, it's the highest commission I've ever had in my life. So guess what? It doesn't matter what I'm doing. I could be busy with the class. I could be busy angry with my kids. I'll take the call because, oh my, Michael, oh my gosh. So where is my mind? And the answer is wherever I turn to. I control the next thought. And if I get triggered by a phone call, I'll go to it. I'll give you another example. It's so simple, it's so ridiculous. Have you ever played ice hockey? Have you ever played a basketball or a game on a court where you got kicked in the shin and it really hurts? In my case, it would be like soccer, but let's say you know someone who got hurt really bad, really hurt, really hurt. And 20 minutes later, the whistle blows, end of game, and you start limping off the court. And people say, excuse me, Rietti, excuse me. I saw you got kicked 20 minutes ago. It's only when the referee blew the whistle 20 minutes later that you limped off the court. You've been running around for 20 minutes. So don't tell me you're in pain. And the answer is, where was my mind for the last 20 minutes? And the answer, we all know the answer. My mind was on the game. We're 1 up. It's the championships. It's the semifinals. Oh my gosh, it's the finals. I'm trying to get MVP, most valuable player. There's teamwork. My mind was on the game. The second the whistle blows, my mind goes away from the game, which has ended, and straight to the pain. Oh, so my mind has the power to distract itself from pain? Interesting. You see, where do you and I live? And I'm not talking about geographically. You and I only ever can live inside thought. It sounds abstract, but it's just simply reality. We don't think about it because we can't even experience life or our emotions without thinking them. We actually think our emotions. We don't experience our emotions as something separate, even though it looks like that. It looks like the rain or the snow or the very hot day is what's driving me crazy. It really looks like it's the traffic that's stressing me out. But if that were really true, then why is it that when you've got a passenger in the passenger seat who is so interesting and stimulating that the whole way home, all 2 hours in traffic, you're not stressed by the traffic? Oh, because you're stimulated by the conversation of the passenger. Oh, you're relaxed because of the music that you're listening to, and you're not paying attention to traffic. So it's not the traffic ever that's inside me pressing my stress button. It's my thinking about the traffic that's driving me crazy. So here you have a very simple formula. And what is that formula? The moment I divorce thought from feeling, I'm in trouble. Because I actually believe people and circumstances are hurting me. Now I'm going to give you a couple of really extreme examples of how far this goes. There's a very strong movement. It's got lots of different names: mindfulness, innate health. They're all very similar, and I do believe that cognitive therapy is also going more and more in the direction of recognizing that psychology has denied the relationship for decades, actually over a century, has denied the relationship between what we think and what we feel, and has pinned the source of my anxiety, fears, worries, pain on past events, complicated relationships, abusive career. And in doing so, I'm actually, I mean, you could say I'm doing a mitzvah of supporting a lot of people by going to them and having them help me sort out my problems. But what happens if it's really true that God created us, and not just our body that knows how to self-heal? He created our mind, which also knows how to self-heal. So how do you self-heal the mind? So let me share with you a couple of extraordinary examples. I met recently a lady by the name of Wendy Seggesi, S-E-G-G-E-S-S-E, I believe is her name. Italian lady, actually Jewish. My wife and I were speaking to her at a conference in the audience, and at a certain point during the conference, she got up, she was introduced, and then she stood on the platform, and we didn't realize, oh, she's one of the speakers. Her speech lasted about 10 seconds. The rest of the 45 minutes that was allotted to her speech was question and answers. She stood up there. She was introduced in the following way. She's in stage 4 cancer, and the type of cancer she has, 96% of women with that cancer don't survive after 5 years. She's in her 8th year of stage 4. She stands up on the platform and she says, I have cancer. I'm not cancer. My body has cancer. I'm not my body. End of speech. The rest of the question and answers was, how do you come to that clarity? How do you divorce what's going on inside you from what you're thinking? How do you not keep thinking about your body and where it's going? And it was very interesting. She would describe the first 4 months of her life after the diagnosis. She was constantly, from every waking moment, thinking about my husband, my 2 kids, what's going to be, I'm going to die. And she realized that after doing this, every waking moment of her day and trying to fall asleep at night, she realized that she was dealing with 2 enemies. She was dealing with the diagnosis of cancer in her body, enemy number, I'm not going to call it 1, because she realized the real enemy number 1 was the poisonous thinking that she was feeding her cancer with. Here she is 8 years later and giving all sorts of talks about the power of the mind. I met recently, I'll give you a second example, and I'm going to share a couple of metaphors to bring home that you and I never live in the past. It's impossible. You cannot live in the past. It's impossible. The most you can do is remember, but that's a thought, what happened yesterday. And if it's very painful, and you got a lot of regret and resentment, bitterness associated with it, so those emotions will come up. But guess what's causing the emotion? The thinking about it. But the trauma, the pain, is not here now. I'm thinking about it and I'm conjuring it up in such a way that I could actually fall apart right now. I'm falling apart. I just can't take it anymore. And I have to call, excuse me. Yeah, Dr. Simons, yeah, I need a double session today. Please, I'm going through a really, really hard time right now, please. So, and he'll say, well, what do you want to talk about? I need to talk about my garden. Your garden is your mind. Now, when you go traveling through your garden and you admire the flowers, your husband, the flowers, your children, the flowers, your health, the flowers, and the beautiful trees, your career, and whatever is going good in your world, what happens when you and I see weeds growing in our garden? So what's the logical thing to do? You don't ignore the weeds, you uproot them and throw them away. Now, what would you say to me if you saw Rietti see the weeds in his garden and say, oh no, weeds, I can't have that. So I go to my house and I fill up my watering can, come back in the garden and water the weeds. What would you say to me? Would you say that's logical, or would you say that's illogical? That makes no sense. Dr. Simons, I need another double session. Yeah, I know we met yesterday, but I can't take it anymore. I can't take. So I'll go back tomorrow, the next day, the next week, and I'll water the weeds. And the next week, and water the weeds. Now, at what point do I say that life doesn't exist yesterday? Not only does it not exist yesterday, it doesn't exist tomorrow. The future never exists. And amongst many mitzvahs of the mind, there are 613 mitzvahs, of which 60 apply to your mind every second of your life. Jealousy is a thought. Anger is a thought. Arrogance is a thought. Sinner, hatred is a thought. Resentment, lo tito et bnei amecha, don't resent other people, which Rashi tells us, netir is a lotion of guarding. Don't guard the memory of things people said and did to wrong me, and hold on to it. Let go. I have to the Torah actually gives me hilchas thinking, the laws of how to recognize when I'm letting my mind create a whole story about how life is so terrible and I get sucked into it. And that's what I'm experiencing. I'm experiencing my thinking. We are only always experiencing our thinking. So you and I agree it's illogical, but the weeds are still there. So how do I uproot them? So I'll give you a simple example. Imagine you have an iPhone or an Android or a smartphone and you get a pop-up. What do you do with a pop-up? You've only got two options. Option number one, either you explore it, you open it up, I call explore, or you ignore, explore, ignore, you press delete. When you get a pop-up in your mind, that's what's happening all the time. You get a pop, you can't stop your mind thinking. Your mind is always, always, always thinking. You can't have two thoughts at the same time. That's impossible. You can think very quickly, so you can run from one thought to another, but it's impossible to contain two thoughts simultaneously. The Stipler brings this in a sefer called Eitzes V'Hadrachas. It's also brought in Likutei Moharan from Reb Nachman of Breslov. Several times he tells us this in Torah 50, 51, and 239, I believe it is, 230, 233, in Likutei Moharan. It's impossible to have two thoughts at the same time. Why is that important to know? It's huge, because since the human brain, the mind, your soul is designed to live in one thought at a time. The question that you can answer is, well, how long is the life of a thought? And the answer is always the same. The life of a thought is as long as you think it. So how far am I ever away from a different thought? And the answer is always the same. I'm always one thought away. Oh, you can get distracted in a second. The game could distract you from pain. Really, that's how powerful your mind is. Oh, you could be, you might know someone like Wendy Sagesi who walks around day and night and she's pressing delete, 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 whenever I'm going to die, delete, I've got cancer, delete. It doesn't mean she's not going for her, what do you call it, sessions for the cure. But where's my mind? That's what matters the most. I'll give you the most extreme case that I ever came across. It's not I came across, I actually asked this of Dr. Keith Blevins. You can Google him too. Dr. Keith Blevins, he's retired now, but he was a psychologist and he was the head of the trauma ward in Miami Beach Hospital for many decades. And I asked him, what was the most extreme example where he saw someone who'd been traumatized, who demonstrated incredible resilience, because that's what we're talking about. You and I are always resilient. I don't care how weak you think you are or how much you believe you've been pushed around. You're always one thought away from letting the real you surface. And the real you is your next thought, always. You can't live in the past. It's impossible. You can't live in the future because as soon as you get there, it's already the present. This is the only time you ever live. I'm not just talking about now. I'm not talking about time. I'm talking about thought. You can't live in the past. You can't live in the future. This is the only time I really exist, inside my thought now. And if I don't like the thought now, because jealousy is pulling me down, anger is pulling me down, resentment is pulling me down, bitterness is pulling me down, regret is pulling me down, well, those are thoughts. No, it's a very deep emotion, and it's layers and layers of it. For years, I have a history of it. Doesn't stop you from where you go next with your next thought. So here's an example that Dr. Blevins gave me. He said the most extreme example of someone who demonstrated this incredible resilience to life was a lady in her 30s who was brought in after a gang had, please forgive me for using the language, had abused her somewhere between 30 and 50 times in one night. After surgery with over 300 stitches throughout her body, she was brought to recovery ward. Dr. Blevins, in the protocol of recovery, the first person you meet is the psychologist and head of trauma, and he just has a very brief introduction to introduce himself, to say that whenever she's ready, he'll set up a session for them to talk. And she said to him, "Oh no, that's okay. I don't think I need any sessions." And he said, "Why not?" She said, "Well, my body was at the wrong place at the wrong time, but my mind is still the same." Now, she was in hospital for 3 months. Stitches kept coming undone in very sensitive areas of her body that had to be restitched, surgery on her face, etc. And he claimed that during this entire period, even though by protocol he had to continually invite her for sessions, she was 100% sincere in her belief that her body had been abused, but not her mind. Now that's extraordinary. We would ordinarily think that that's going to take years and years and years of recovery. Why me? Why did that happen to me? I got a husband, I've been loyal, and now these disgusting low lives abuse. My God, nightmares. And I'm not trying to belittle trauma, but trauma is a memory. It's as though you're having a horrible nightmare, and the second you wake up and you orientate yourself, within about a split second, maybe 1 to 1.5 seconds, what's your response? Phew, it was only a dream. Oh, you mean during the nightmare it was really scary? I mean, really, really. I mean, I thought it was real. Then the moment you woke up and realized, oh, it didn't happen. So is yesterday happening right now? And if it isn't really happening right now, then why is my mind going there? The last example I'll give you is the following. I have here a hammer. I'm just warning you right now. It's my worry hammer. It's not real. It's made of rubber, and it's a thought. It's just a metaphor. I worry a lot, and when I worry about the kids, about my health, about my age, about losing weight, about neighbors, about COVID, and I worry about just life in general, I start to experience real concerns about where life is going. Now, it's not the only hammer I have. I have another one called debt. Now, you know what? This is getting really hard. I mean, I haven't earned money in months now with COVID, and I find myself just borrowing more money, loans, and rolling over credit cards. And when's this going to end? And this is my anger hammer. I've got a lot of anger, sometimes towards God, my parents, my sister-in-law. I could write a book, volumes, about the people who've really upset me and got me really angry in my life. And just thinking about it starts to get a real headache. Now, these are only rubber hammers. They're not really giving me a headache. But I got a frustration hammer, and I have a separate one just for my spouse, dedicated to my spouse. This is my spouse. No, this is not my spouse. It's a rubber hammer. It's a metaphor. Here is my stress hammer. I mean, this is really, you add this all up. I am so stressed. You cannot begin to believe how stressed I am. And when I start talking about my anxieties. I've got a lot of those as well. And just to top it all off, I've got a lot of concerns about my health. I just need to lose weight. I'm such a slob. I don't know what it is. And I really didn't want to bring this up because my boss, he drives me crazy. I do the work of 3 employees. I can't take it anymore. Now, here's my question to you. Who's hurting me? Who's hurting me? Where am I getting the headache from? Is it really the people and the things in my life? No, it's my thoughts. Oh, so here's the solution. And this is what's going to sound crazy simple. The moment I realize I cannot exist outside of my mind. I exist inside it. And what I'm experiencing is what I'm thinking about. What I'm feeling is what I'm thinking 100% of the time. Try feeling something without thinking it. You can't. So here's the solution. Do I need weeks, months, or years of therapy or self-help or reading books to find out the solution to my problem, or the moment I realize the true source of my frustration and my anger, my stress, is my thinking, guess what every healthy person will do next? Drop the thinking. And because of our mistranslations, we miss out on a huge mitzvah, which says, Umaltem et orlat levavchem. You shall cut off, from the word mila. Orlat, now orla can mean foreskin, it means extra, something that's extra. Rashi tells us orla refers to blockage, it's a blockage. Timtum halev is orlat halev, it's a blockage of the mind. Umaltem, you shall cut off es orlas levavchem, remove the extra thoughts. And that's what God says. When I worry, God says, Tamim tiyeh, Hashem Elokecha. Don't worry about the future because I don't control it. Only God does. I can plan, but worry, that makes no sense. And how long is the worry going to last inside my mind? And the answer is as long as I think it. So how far am I away from dropping that thought? And the answer is you're always one thought away, always. So that's a huge mitzvah. Sefer Charedim and others count it, including Ramban, as one of the 613 mitzvahs, is to drop the overweight thinking. To stop thinking things that block my mind. It blocks my mind from emunah. It blocks my mind from simcha. It blocks my mind from enjoying the good that's already in my garden because I'm so focused on the weeds. And instead of dropping the thoughts, pulling out the weeds, I go and water the weeds. Water the weeds. That's ill logic. That doesn't make sense. So no wonder I'm suffering. But guess what? The moment I realize who's the true source of my suffering? Oh, it's my thinking. And drop the thinking. And all of a sudden, there's a possibility of what you would call true liberation. What's true liberation? True liberation is I'm liberated from thinking that you're hurting me. God's hurting me. Life is hard. So you can actually find multiple examples, especially in Tanakh, of personalities who had horrifically difficult lives and yet lived with incredible joy. David HaMelech is probably the greatest of all. Sarah Imenu, she was barren 100 years, 90 years she's barren. She took on a co-wife. How many of you have considered that? I mean, I can't afford more than one myself, but she took on Hagar as a co-wife in order to have children. Sarah was kidnapped not once, twice. And yet when the Torah tells us what type of life was Sarah, in chapter 23, verse 1, in Genesis, it tells us, Vayiyu chaye Sarah, 100 shana v'esrim shana v'sheva shanim. Her life was 127 years, and when Chazal pounced on the grammatical inconsistency of the pasuk, because it says this is the life of Sarah, 100 years, 20 years, and 7 years, these are the years of the life of Sarah. Well, you just said it's going to be the life of Sarah. Why are you repeating it? And says the Gemara, says Chazal, Rashi quotes it, to tell you that it made no difference which part of her life you looked at. Kulan, all of them, Kulan, all of them, Shavin were equal, L'toiva, in good. They were all equally good. Excuse me? Equally good? Kidnapped once, twice, barren 90 years. She goes through the same nisyonis, the same test that her husband goes through, almost bar none, except for the Kedah, if you want to call it that, and Bris Milah. But otherwise, she went through the Ra'av, she went through the famine. How can you say her life was equally good? And the answer is so ridiculously simple, because there's two ways to experience life. Either outside in, the Nazis, the Crusades, all these Rishayim, these terrible, wicked people ruining our lives. I can either look at the world as happening to me or inside out. Where do I truly experience life? So Sarah Imenu was able to say, Kulan Shavin L'Taima. It didn't mean that she wasn't in pain at the time, but she would chop very quickly when she would fall into the trap of thinking Olam Hazeh is really happening to her. So much so that when she chopped herself. When she was laughing at the news that she's going to have a child, when Hashem said, why did you laugh? She denied it. How could you deny it? The Torah says you just laughed. And she said, oh, no. That's the old Sarah. I hopped straight away. She got the pop-up and she starts to explore it and then realized, what am I exploring this pop-up for? I've been praying for a child all my life. And so when God said, why did you laugh? I said, oh, that's the old Sarah. That's not me. That's the explanation of the Chidush Arim. Based on the Rambam. Rambam says when a person does teshuvah, they should give themselves a new name. He says, I don't mean give yourself a new name literally. You should look at yourself as, oh, that's the old Jonathan. Oh, that's the old Sarah. Oh, that's the old Avi. That's the old Hanala. Oh, that's the old. Oh, is life really that simple? So I'm going to close here on this last example and then open up for questions. The mitzvah of teshuvah, God actually says the following words. You'll find it in chapter 30, verse 14 of Devarim. What is teshuvah? Teshuvah is a hirur, it's a thought. A hirur alev, it's a thought in one moment. Kikaroi velecha hadava ma'oid. This item, teshuvah, thought, is extremely close to you. How close could be extreme? Because it's inside you. Kikaroi velecha hadava ma'oid. Beficha, in your mouth, to say sorry. And in your thoughts, to do it. Teshuvah is not that complicated. It's one thought away. And teshuvah doesn't mean repentance. Teshuvah means changing your mind. Teshuvah means changing direction. Of what direction? Oh, you've gone on a new diet? Yes, I'm doing teshuvah. I'm eating less of the wrong foods and eating more of the healthy. Yes, I'm exercising my body more. Yeah, I'm keeping my mouth shut when my husband, wife, children say things that ordinarily really get me upset until I realize where the pain is really coming from. Oh, so it's not my teenager. That's why they call them tipeshus rate, right? It's not my teenager. Anyone here who has teenagers will understand why some animals eat their young. That's pure humor, no reflection on reality whatsoever. So it's not the kids, it's my thinking. So what we've tried to establish is that the past never exists, nor does the future, only the present. We're not talking about just time, we're really talking about where is my mind. And the word simcha is made up of two words, sham mayach. Simcha is the three letters, sameach is made up of two words. This is from Baal Shem Tov, sham mayach, there's your brain. And the word bersimcha, in the state of happiness, is the exact same letters as machshava, thought. Why? Because where does happiness take place? Your bank account, size of your home, car you drive, letters at the end of a person's name? No, we all know the truth. Happiness is what I'm thinking. So I could have $1 billion and still be unhappy? Yes. Have a beautiful home and still be unhappy? Yes, it's possible. Because happiness is not what's outside of me, ever. Happiness is always what I'm thinking. If I'm counting the $1 billion, I've got another billion reasons to be happy. But really, happiness starts with what we're thinking, what we're paying attention to. So in the merit of watering our gardens and uprooting the weeds and not watering them, and when I catch myself watering the weeds, realizing, oh my gosh, how will I ever stop watering the weeds? And the answer is, drop the thought. Go to something else, make a phone call a friend, say a capital of Tehillim, talk to Hashem, say, thank you, Hashem, I love you no matter what, and distract myself into reality away from Olam HaSheker. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Rietti. That was really very enlightening.
You're welcome.
If anybody would like to ask a question, please unmute yourself now.
Hi, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Sure.
Okay. All right, so I actually wrote it to you. I'm experiencing life free of corona, okay? So
Right.
therefore, I go out without a mask, because if I go out with a mask, then I think about the mask, and then I'm not experiencing life free of corona. So how do you keep yourself in the right place, even when you have a reality that's not, okay, like you were talking about the cancer. I mean, that's a very difficult thing. That's, it's not even in the same league as what I'm asking, but this is like a more pressing thing for every day for everybody around here.
So if I'm understanding your question correctly, you're saying that how do I remain corona-free when it's all around me? Okay, so I'm going to say something that may sound a little bit shocking. We're all wearing masks all the time. The panim...
Not all of us. Sorry.
You should be.
Your panim is the Christian translation is face. But I think all of you living in Israel, you'll know that panim is singular or plural. It's plural. So actually the word panim correctly translates as faces. It has another meaning, which is panim. You see, your face is a mask. It's not the real you. It's a reflection on the outside of who you are on the inside. That's why it shares both meanings, panim and panim. But panim is plural. It's never singular. And the reason why, and this is the Radak in Yeshua, Perek Aleph, Pasuk Aleph, the famous Radak, who's a huge grammarian from 11th century, he's a Rishon. He tells us that there's no such word as panim in singular. The reason why is because you are always wearing masks with your face. There's a mask of happiness, frustration, fear, joy, exhilaration. Our face is already a mask. Just putting a physical mask across is, if I'm going to think about it, then yeah, I'm not free because I have to wear this mask and it's uncomfortable. But what is uncomfortable is not the mask, it's my thinking about the mask. You want to make it a little bit looser. I personally don't wear the mask over my mouth. I wear under my mouth because I happen to know that I still have it over, it's over my mouth, but my mouth is free to take in oxygen, because when we're deprived of oxygen, the amount of oxygen we ought to be breathing in naturally by wearing an artificial mask, we are actually compromising our immune systems even more than we already are by being so stationary at homes on chairs too many hours a day. So that's an aside, but essentially our face is already a mask, and it's more than just a mask. I'm going to say something quite shocking. You will never, I pray, in your lifetime ever see your face, ever. You see, it's impossible. The most you'll ever see is a reflection of the mask you're wearing, your face. You'll see it in a mirror, you might see it in a photograph, but that's not the real face. Your face, you can't see your face. What's my face doing on the floor? Your face, so why did God make your face that you never ever get to see? And the answer is, who does it belong to? Everyone else. So if I pay attention to the mask on the outside, I'm going to be thinking corona. If I'm paying attention to all the social distancing, I'm going to be thinking corona. If I'm thinking about something else, Rebbeinu Shloim, you have given the world possibly the most powerful message that you control everything by taking something that's microscopic, no human being can see except under the microscope, a virus that has now taken over pretty much the whole civilized world and put every major economy into compromise / disaster / I don't mean as in violence, but I mean as in grammar. So here we are experiencing God's invisible hand. So that's a thought. There's another thought I could have. Thank God I've got through Corona. It wasn't easy. Baruch Hashem didn't affect my lungs. Yes, I got weakened by it. Yes, I had fever and chills for up to 10 weeks. But does that mean now I can't think about the blessings in my life? Or maybe the power of contrast enables me to pay more attention to the good that I was paying less attention to pre-Corona. So if a person wants to talk about being Corona-free, where should they go? Start where it takes place. There's no liberation outside of thought. It's impossible. You can have people in prison who are liberated because their minds are not busy thinking about being incarcerated. Yosef Atzadik was in prison 12 years. Moshe Rabbeinu, 10 years. He was having hisbodedus the whole time. Yosef Atzadik was busy. He was busy taking responsibility for the people around him, including other prisoners who he made happy each day. So we are always what we're thinking. Nobody can imprison you. They can imprison your body, but not the real you. The real you is your mind. That's impossible.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Hi, Rabbi Rietti. Thank you for an amazing and inspiring shir.
Thank you.
So I understand the concept that the source is really your thought, and that dictates the rest of it, everything follows. But sometimes it feels as if the largest gap that exists is between your thought, what you really truly know, and what you feel. I know, let's say my life is blessed and filled with A, B, C, and D. yet the feeling can sometimes still reside that there's jealousy for what you don't. So how do you kind of bridge the gap between your thought and your feeling?
Excellent question. The irony is that this world has forged what you rightly called a gap between my thoughts and my feelings. And this world is called Olam HaSheker. It's not a real world, it's a world of untruth. It's called Olam HaDimyon, which really, literally means it's an illusion. We are all inside a divine illusion where everything that's turning up in our lives is God turning up in our lives through that person, through that circumstance. And what it does is force this gap, as you rightly call it, between what I'm thinking and feeling, so that I actually have divorced the two. And I really believe that my feelings are married to this person or circumstance that's causing me to feel this way. And if it's a feeling of love, then if God forbid this person dies, then I'm bereaved because he's or she's not in my life anymore. Now, I don't mean to belittle it through my dramatical skills, which is, I give credit to my father who was an actor. What I'm bringing out is really the following. Any emotion that I pin outside of me, whether it's love or whether it's fear, I'm a fear of a person. And then when that person goes, oh, I am so relieved. If I'm in fear of a neighbor who is so obnoxious and really has made living in this apartment unbearable, and then that person suddenly gets a job in another town or dies, and I go, oh, I'm so relieved not to have that person in my life anymore. I married my emotions to that person. I marry my emotions to circumstances. What this is saying is, how do I close, in your question, close that gap between what I'm thinking and feeling? And the answer is, when I recognize there never was a gap. There is no gap. The moment I think it, I feel it. There is no, it's faster than light. Light goes 186,000 miles per second. The communication between what I'm thinking and feeling is immediate because, you know what's interesting? It's only very recently, I would say in the last 20, 30 years, that medical science is exploring the dimension known as the mind-emotion-body relationship. And it's not popular. It's still not hugely popular. There's a Dr. John Sarno who worked with over 10,000 patients. He's world famous, who he cured of horrible, horrible back pain. And he came up with his own working definition theory, which he has proven in tens of thousands of cases. And I'm one of those tens of thousands that he never even met. I was cured from back pain from a video that I watched. And that's not unusual. A lot of people were cured from back pain from videos or books that he wrote without even going for a session with him. And the reason why is because he would pinpoint the true source of the pain. He showed that when I'm stressed, what the body does in response to my stress is it provides less oxygen to the muscles. In doing so, the muscles tighten and experience pain. Signal to the body, oh, my back, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, I can't bend down. And the body is brilliant. It will distract me from the stress. What Dr. Sarno helped people recognize is the moment I realize it's not actually back pain, it's stress in my life. All of a sudden, we remove the mask off the back pain and realize, oh, it's stress? Oh, that's what I'm thinking. Sometimes I might need to go to a friend or a therapist, a professional, to help me deal with my stress. But what we're saying tonight, this afternoon, whatever time it is now for you, what we're basically saying is that this gap that appears to be between what I'm thinking and my feeling is actually never open. It's always immediate. And it's just that recognition, it's that awareness that is the solution. So it's not something I have to do to close the gap. It's actually what I have to do to be aware there was never a gap. And what I'm experiencing is not how do I close this gap or stop the emotion that's coming from stuff that happens, even though I'm counting my blessings. The gap never existed because I only live inside thought. And so if I want to experience more of the blessings, that's what I need to pay more attention to. It doesn't mean I shouldn't empathize with my friend or my spouse or my kids when they're going through pain. And it doesn't mean I shouldn't feel their pain. I should feel their pain because they are experiencing it. But the ultimate solution is one thought therapy, is to realize I'm always one thought away. And my kid, my spouse, and I may really not be ready to hear that right now, but just knowing that's reality is a huge thing for me to be able to draw out from inside, because it's not a book I have to read, it's not a session I have to go to, it's not a class I have to hear, it's not a rabbi or a therapist or a doctor I need to go to heal what's going on inside here. So if I'm experiencing jealousy, it's not your house that makes me jealous. Your house can't go inside my mind and press my jealousy button. It's my thoughts about your house that is making me jealous. It's my thoughts about this person's better looks or intelligence, or how do they stay looking so young? How come they're just such better parents than me? You know, I bet they just had such more nurturing parents than my parents. And I go into this whole story about how my parents were so not there for me, and my father was so generous, my mother was so stingy, and I turned out completely confused. And when I make up this whole analysis, I'm not saying I'm making it up, but when I analyze and analyze and analyze, guess what I'm doing? Watering the weeds instead of enjoying my garden. But the biggest problem about watering my weeds is not the weeds growing, because I'm always one thought away from removing those. The problem with my watering the garden is weeds instead of the garden is my garden gets neglected. And I stop paying attention to my health, stop paying attention to the people who do deserve my attention. I stop giving attention to my own self, and I'm poisoning my mind, and I need detox. I need to detox. And I'm not talking about food. I'm not talking about poison. I'm talking about the worst imaginable poison of all. The weeds in the garden of my mind. That's what I need to detox from. I'm sorry, it was a long answer to a short question.
Wonderful. Anybody else?
Yeah, can I just make a point? I have heard of changing your mind as quick. You can't have two thoughts in the same time in your mind. So what I've been doing is, as soon as a bad thought comes in my mind or something I don't want to hear, then I say to myself, Psalm 23.
Sounds what, sorry?
Psalm 23. I say to myself in my head, Psalm 23, and I'm so comforted because I'm with Hashem.
Beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, Hashem is my shepherd. I shall not want.
Yeah.
It's interesting. You remind me of a pasuk which David HaMelech said, "Ayin yavai Ezri." From where will my help come?
Yeah.
And that's what Ma'ayin means. From where? But it's interesting. Ma'ayin is exact same spelling. Ayin means nothing. And what he was also saying was, God is so big and so great, he can make my salvation come from nothing. So, because God creates everything from nothing, so it doesn't matter how bad the circumstances are, God is way, way bigger even than that. So I agree with you. It makes a lot of sense that I would realign myself with God's reality reading a psalm like 23.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Rietti, I just wanted to thank you and tell you that I listened to you years ago, and it's a pleasure to hear you again.
And please,
That's my mom.
thank you. And Mrs. Fix, please give Nachman my warmest regards.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a question. I would love to know where to get those hammers.
Well, first of all, I really like your accent.
I'm from England.
And second of all, I got them on Amazon. I just Googled rubber hammers, and I have to admit, they were $9 each. And I thought that was really a ridiculous price to pay. But I felt that the power of the metaphor was so strong, because I use this all the time when I work with children to help them. And kids get this much faster than us adults. Kids get it much quicker, that the relationship between what I'm thinking and feeling is immediate. And when they hub that, it's much easier for them to start practicing that and being aware of it during their day than us adults, because we've got so many memories of things that have happened to us and people who've really hurt us. And there's just It's a forest and not a garden. And it's not so simple for me to buy into this because I've been blaming for a long time. I've been complaining for a long time. I've been accusing for a long time. And so just to let go of that and tell myself, oh, I've been doing this to myself and it really isn't that other person, that's much harder for me to do than kids. So $9, maybe you can get better on eBay.
Okay. I think they might be worth investing in.
Or maybe just buy one hammer and put a sticker and have a number of stickers of different emotions, and you put that on the same hammer. So you're just paying for the more stickers, that's all.
And they don't give you headaches or bruises.
No, they don't. No, but I shouldn't do it too often though, because you start to feel it after a while, but yeah, they don't give you a headache.
Okay.
The only thing that gives me a headache is what I'm thinking about.
Very inspirational, thank you.
Lovely, lovely personality.
Thank you very much.
I have a
Okay.
question. I have a question.
Okay,
How
we'll
do-
make it the last one.
Okay. How do you deal with the news? You know, when you listen, you have to know what's going on in the world so that
Yes.
you know how to live your life.
Yes,
And you don't know what is the truth anymore.
yes.
And every time you hear something, you know, have to say to yourself, that might not really be true. And so to have this better thought, because these thoughts are going through your head about all these realities, but you have to listen. You can't turn it off and not pay attention to what is being said. You can't say, I'm not going to think that thought. So how do you deal with it? Because the news drives me crazy.
Yes, yes, I understand what you're saying. So it's interesting. In chapter 15, verse 39 of the book of Numbers, there's one of the 69 mitzvahs of the mind. Lo taturu acharei levavchem v'acharei einechem. Don't follow your thoughts or your eyes. Obvious question is, well, those are the only thoughts I have. I've only got my set of eyes, so whose thoughts and eyes should I be following? And the answer is, you look in the pasuk, it says, Hashem gave me Taryag mitzvahs, and he wants me to look at the tzitzit and remember to do all the Taryag mitzvahs. And in the same pasuk, meaning the following: God says, don't follow what you see and what you think. Follow what I think. And what does God think? And the answer is Das Torah, the mind of Hashem. So the more Torah we learn, the more we're going to look at the fake world for what it is. So I'll give you a simple example. When I let riots or the liberal Democrats, Yamach Shemam, make me think that they've got any power, then I'm going to get myself hurt, and I'm going against this pasuk, because you can almost guarantee that everything on the media is 100% fake or 99.9% fake. There has to be something that might be true for them to sell. But I'm going to tell you something which I believe is amazing hashgacha pratis. The word media is 2 words in Hebrew. Me, dea. Whose opinion? Why am I feeding so-and-so's opinion, so-and-so's opinion? Why am I going... Oh, sorry, I got myself distracted. Why am I spending time letting other people's weeds go inside my garden? I gotta be crazy. So I agree with you. If my mind is a beautiful garden, and I know it is, and I just let these weeds pass by in front of my eyes and recognize them for what they are, it's fake news. Is it something for me to be concerned for? Yes. Worried? No. Concerned? Yes. Fear? No. Why not? Because who's controlling everything? And me, Dea, whose opinion is this? Is it based on Torah? And please don't repeat this. Almost every Jewish magazine that comes out today is celebrating Olam Hazeh. It's glorifying Olam Hazeh. Food, clothes, vacations. I know it's not really shaykh now, but it's horrific how we in our own world have fallen into glorifying false news, fake news. Even learning on Zoom with schools, I call it fake education, because the kids aren't seeing the teacher. It's not face-to-face. If I'm looking at the camera, which I actually do, then your eyes are looking at me, but I'm not seeing a single one of you. So I'm doing the best I can over here, but actually there's no face-to-face going on at all. You can read my face, I can't read yours because I'm not looking at your face. If I look now at your face, I can see your face, but I'm looking at the camera and you see me looking in a different direction. It's all fake. So I need to saturate my mind with God's mitzvahs. And once I know which mitzvahs he wants me to think, oh, jealousy, oh, non-reality, drop it. Sinner, hatred, drop it. Resentment, natira, drop it. Gaiva, arrogance, there's no room for that, drop it. What should I be filling my mind with? Oh, emunah, oh, simcha, oh, avas Yisrael, avas achayim, love for life, avas abrias, life for all people. There's so much to enjoy. The mitzvah of being grateful, all that is what God asked me to saturate my mind with. So I would say that the more we realize what God wants us to look at and see, then when, not if, when we look at the news, we'll know that it's fake and we won't get blown away or distraught or worry about it. God has been in charge all along. If you really want chizuk, Rav Nachman of Breslev, right at the end of Sichas Aran, it's paragraph 307 and 308, the last two paragraphs. He describes there that we should never fall into the trap of thinking that the world is getting worse and worse and worse. He said, on the contrary, the world has been getting better ever since Adam ate from the tree. Then came along Noach. The world got even better after that with Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, the Shiftei Kah. Then there was Matan Torah. Then came Moshe Rabbeinu. Oh my gosh, Moshe Rabbeinu. Wow, tops them all. And then David HaMelech, and then the Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, and the Arizal, and the Baal Shem Tov. The tzaddikim are bringing the world closer and closer, and Hashem's world is getting its tikkun. We're coming closer and closer to the tikkun. So even though it looks like America's on fire, and the Democrats and the liberals, are much louder than the silent majority of the Republicans. And even though it looks like gay rights and all the nonsense of legitimizing same-gender marriages is angering Hashem, it's all true. But God has already told us how the end is going to come about. Kibbutz Goliath, not a single goy will be allowed to live in Eretz Yisrael. The building of Bayis Shlishi, Mashiach will come, and the building of Bayis Shlishi I mentioned, and then finally Tchias HaMesim. Now that is something to really look forward to. Should I worry about Gog and Magog between then? I personally have a munah in Rav Nachman of Breslev, who claims that when Mashiach comes, there won't be one single bullet fired, not one. And I found that hard to believe until I saw communism fall, as you did as well, without a single bullet. No one could possibly have believed that. So hold on tight, the end is coming, and it's a good ending.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Rietti. Thank you for being with us today.
You're welcome.
Very inspiring. I'm sorry for the hiccup in the beginning.
No problemo.
But it was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for holding out. God bless you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Joyce.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Joyce.
Just before